A new Gallup poll shows that the Democrat Party is indeed imploding. In this video, we're going to take a look at the massive tectonic shift in voter affiliation. We're going to see how that shift promises midterm losses that could be colossal for the Democrats. And stick with me to the very end of this video when I'll reveal why those losses could shatter the Democrat Party for the next 100 years. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve coming to you from our brand new studio here. I am your daily fake news antidote. As each and every day, I provide patriotic analysis to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we begin, as many of you know, we have recently launched our brand new initiative called Change America, which enables ordinary patriots to do extraordinary things. It's a program that makes it possible for anyone and everyone to help unseat rhinos just by simply going out and doing your daily grocery shopping. You can back America First candidacies by simply going out to eat. It's a program that can round off your debit or credit card purchases to the nearest dollar and use that change to support patriot causes all over the nation. So make sure to click on that link below to sign up or learn more about our Change America initiative, and let's make 2022 the most epic red wave ever. All right, so let's dive right in here, gang. We have a bombshell Gallup poll that just came out. When I say bombshell, that ain't just hyperbole. This poll is utterly devastating news for the Democrats. A new Gallup survey was just released that shows a dramatic shift in political preferences occurring in the American electorate throughout the year of 2021. And the upshot of it all is that the Democrats began the year with a 9-point advantage over Republicans. 49% of the electorate identified as Democrats, while only 40% identified as Republicans. It was the highest lead for the Democrats since the fourth quarter of 2012. But now, according to Gallup, that party identification gap has completely reversed. Now, the Republicans lead Democrats in terms of party identification, 47 to 42%. In short, Democrats dropped in support by 7%, while Republicans gained in support by 7%, representing an overall 14-point shift in party affiliation. Here's how Gallup is interpreting the findings. Quote, both the 9-point Democratic advantage in the first quarter and the 5-point Republican edge in the fourth quarter are among the largest Gallup has measured for each party in any quarter since it began regularly measuring party identification and leaning in 1991. The year 2021 was an eventful one in politics after a similarly eventful 2020 that also saw major shifts in party preferences. In early 2021, Democratic strength reached levels not seen in nearly a decade. By the third quarter, those Democratic gains evaporated as Biden's job approval declined. The political winds continued to become more favorable to Republicans in the fourth quarter, giving the GOP an advantage over Democrats larger than any they had achieved in more than 25 years. Right now, the Republicans have an advantage over the Democrats not seen in a generation, in 25 years. This is an astonishing development, and it's being corroborated by the so-called generic ballot surveys, right? These are the surveys that ask the voter who you plan to vote for, the Republican or the Democrat in the next election, generic ballot. The latest from CNBC found that Republicans have a 10-point lead over the Democrats in the generic ballot poll, 44% to 34%. Now, if we compare these generic ballot polls to the last time Republicans stomped the Democrats in the midterms, 2010, 2014, 2022 promises to be a bloodbath. This isn't right-wing wishful thinking. Democrats are admitting this. Jay Campbell, who's a Democratic pollster and who helped conduct that CNBC poll, said it best, quote, if the election were tomorrow, it would be an absolute unmitigated disaster for the Democrats. And that's exactly the kind of headlines we're seeing just this week. This came out just this morning. Look at this. This is from Politico. Look at the headline. Outlook remains dreary for Dems this week. Well, if this Gallup survey is right, gang, the dreariness is going to extend far beyond this week. And so this is why you have people like Steve Bannon coming out the other day and saying this Gallup survey, which mirrors the kind of polling that we saw just before the Gingrich revolution back in 1994, this survey suggests that the MAGA movement can utterly shatter the Democratic Party. That's the kind of tectonic shift that we're talking about here. The Democrats have so utterly failed at the border. They've so utterly failed with the economy, record inflation numbers, devaluing people's standards of living. They've so utterly failed with things like CRT, critical race theory, and with parents and school boards. They have so utterly failed with their absurd mandates and COVID restrictions. And they most especially failed with their Soros-funded radical DAs who are allowing criminals to roam the streets freely and wreak havoc in Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. Democrat DAs are refusing to protect our urban populations. This is a once-in-a-lifetime, a once-in-a-generation chance to shatter the Democrat Party by winning 100 seats in the House in the upcoming midterms. That's Bannon's take on the significance of this Gallup poll. And he's not alone. Dick Morris is pointing out that these upcoming midterms had the potential basically wiping out the Democrats for the foreseeable future. They had the potential of rendering the Democrats a permanent minority party. So what Morris is getting at here is that you have now 220 Democrats in Congress. About half are white, half are non-white. And what he notices is that we can more or less assume that those seats are pretty safe that are non-white. They're going to be able to weather the massive storm, like Kwesi Mfume in Baltimore. He's not going to get voted out, which means that the vast majority of political casualties that are going to be coming from this GOP landslide are going to be against white Democratic congressmen. Now, with about 120 white Democratic congressmen, right, we see that number cut in half. What's going to happen to the Democratic Party after the midterms, especially with Latinos and Black men defecting over to the Republicans? Well, the Democratic Party is basically going to become a far left sort of, pseudo-Black party. And it's going to become radically left-wing. And with both Latinos and Black men increasingly moving into the Republican Party, the Democratic Party would in effect be decimated. With a new coalition of whites, Latinos, and Black men having largely abandoned the party, the Democrats would, in Steve Bannon's terms, the Democrats would become a permanent minority party for the next 100 years. And this is all the more plausible given the larger political dynamic that we're seeing emerge all over the world that scholars call de-alignment. Okay, it's a fascinating development. It's been trending now all over the world over the last decade. It's called de-alignment. De-alignment basically involves the breakdown of the traditional bonds that used to exist between political parties and their constituents. And this breakdown and the bonds of fidelity that voters have historically had with their traditional political party is making political affiliation far more volatile than ever before. And this is why we've seen so many neocons like George Will or Joe Scarborough, Brett Stevens, the New York Times, jump ship and become Democrats. But this is also why we're seeing so many Democrats jumping ship and becoming Republicans. We're living in a very volatile time with regard to political affiliation precisely because of this dynamic known as de-alignment. And de-alignment is happening because the center-left and center-right have thus far refused to address the issues that so many citizens are concerned about, like border security, bringing industrial manufacturing jobs back home, taking on things like CRT and defending Western values, Western civilization, precisely the things that the MAGA movement is all about. And so with the center-right, center-left, the neocon neoliberal, completely aloof and even hostile to those concerns, that hostility has given rise to new politicians who've come up and have begun to champion those concerns and are thus totally disrupting and realigning political allegiances. And so lifelong Democrats are becoming Republicans because of the MAGA movement, while neocon Republicans are responding to that by siding with radical Democrats. So the whole notion of party affiliation is highly volatile. And as we're seeing, it's the MAGA movement, the Republican MAGA movement, that's coming out on top. This is the politics of the future. Border economy, culture, nation, custom, tradition. This is the politics of the future. And Gallup has just given us a huge glimpse on how close that future really is. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded and how the media is panicking over a new insurrection that's triumphing all across the nation. You are not going to want to miss that. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.